Dhammavichaya, or the investigation of Dhamma. This is the second of the 7 factors of awakening. This faculty is essentially the practice of wise attention. These 7 factors connect with another group of teachings known as the 5 faculties. Both the 5 faculties and the 7 factors require balance. Some factors lean toward concentration and stillness, while others lean toward the active and energetic side. The 5th of the 5 faculties is wisdom. This is reflected in the 7 factors of Dhammavichaya. It involves a critical element of enlightenment called manasikara. Yoniso means going to the source, and manasikara refers to activities of the mind. So together they represent the mind doings that go to the source to inquire into the roots and birth of things and the causes of phenomena. The Buddha taught that 2 elements or factors are necessary for comprehending enlightenment. The internal factor is this capacity for wise reflection, or yoniso manasikara. The external agency is a kalyana mitta. I'm using different words from different traditions here. Or in other words, a wise friend, or a mentor, a teacher. These are the primary requirements, the basic requisites or resources for enlightenment. Aside from, hitting on meeting the mental faculties of the 7 factors, more or less mental. Some of them are physical. So one needs a teacher and the development of the faculty of wisdom. So using this wise attention is what it defines inquiry into the Dharma. One investigates. This investigation requires energy and can be used when feeling lethargic or sleepy, actually. If your energy is diminished while trying to focus, one way to raise it is to move from a single object of focus toward more discursive things or activities. And Dhammavichaya is one of them. It's quite refreshing. Not everyone starts as an investigator, the way like a detective in the Dhamma. If you're not naturally inquisitive or investigative, or you don't have the need to really look into things, that's okay. This is a conscious skill that must be developed. You don't have to naturally have it. Regardless of your upbringing or your culture or your nature, you can pick up these skills, including critical thinking and inquiry, because that's part of it. So developing this faculty can be very delightful. Not only that, but it's just like a superpower. It's a superhuman ability to look into phenomenon and just know the reality of it. Not to stop thinking for once and stop relying on the intellect and just know the reality of things, perceive the reality of phenomena, just know things by cultivating your consciousness and tapping into the consciousness all around the field that's freely accessible by us for the most part. We used to do this all the time. This was the normal, trusted means of getting confirmations, confirming things, and getting the truth, knowing the truth, instead of this endless debates and analyzing and scientific experiments that we do nowadays that are still so speculative, and the debates are so subjective, and just ongoing, constant arguing. It's so senseless. Why can't we just know how things are? That's how our culture used to be when we were a very religious, deeply spiritual society, where all the civilizations were like this. Everybody was intuitive, and everybody just understood that we all had this ability and we could rely on it. And we would listen to people when they said they had a vision about something, because we knew that those visions were always coming true for us. Everyone was having those visions and insights. I mean, this was happening thousands of years ago, even 4,000 to 8,000 years ago, at the end period, the last, when the last Atlantean people were still here and growing new seeds for this particular root race, and then into ancient times of Egypt, and the first few hundred years of a common era, we were all deeply spiritual and we knew the truth. It was a regular way of investigating the truth through prayer and meditation and dreams, and it was reliable back then. It wasn't voodoo work. And so joy can arise from this inquiry, loving kindness as well. That's a byproduct of this. Now, the primary cause for the rising of wisdom is asking questions, right? So the wisdom faculty in the 7 factors is the fruit of inquiry, dhammavichaya, asking questions. Dhammavichaya can be self-inquiry into what occurs within you. It can also be directed towards others, and you can find edification from teachers and fellow practitioners and texts. So this inquiry is not limited to a school or tradition or subject. It is to investigate the Dhamma, scriptures, and phenomena. Any phenomena. So many people throughout human history have produced good thoughts regarding energy and joy and transcending the sensory world this way. Good advice, beneficial advice, comes from a variety of sources, and that investigation, that close scrutiny and deep inquiry into the nature of things. So the teachings of the Buddha often function as recursive structures that loop around and come back to some of the familiar things that it has already mentioned in the formula. That's why we see repeating, mindfulness is repeated many times in the 7 factors, the 37 requisites, and the 7 factors are found in the 37 requisites, and the 4 Noble Truths are in the Eightfold Path, that sort of thing. One area of investigation is the 7 factors of awakening themselves. That's part of Dhammavichaya. Examining each factor and seeing how they interrelate. That's a Dhamma practice. And many of these factors are repeated, as I said, in different settings. And there's also the 5 faculties of wisdom, which joined by energy and concentration and mindfulness and faith. Now, while the 7 factors of awakening don't explicitly list the faculty of faith, it should not be dismissed. It involves authenticating one's trust. So you could say that faith is in Dhammavichaya. You can develop and cultivate faith through Dhammavichaya, this investigation. So suspending skepticism at the beginning of these inquiries is useful. You have to, when you're undertaking meditation and inquiry, you have to start with direct experience and knowledge, and you have to be open enough to try in the first place. You need direct experience and knowledge just to promote some faith in the practice. Now, mindfulness cannot be separated from Dhammavichaya. The instructions for mindfulness are to inquire into the four foundations: the body, its feelings, the mind, and Dhamma categories. The 7 factors of enlightenment are one of these categories. This creates a recursive structure where the factors occur within the foundations of mindfulness, and mindfulness recurs within the factors. This is intended to help clarify the connections. Mindfulness requires Dhammavichaya, and Dhammavichaya requires mindfulness. Because you can't meditate if you're not mindful. You won't have the concentration for it. You'll get distracted. So they're woven together like a rope. These faculties also affect the ropes, that analogy, that bind and impede you. These are called fetters as well. So they're the fetters are the source of the 5 hindrances. So the ropes is another analogy that you'll hear or read about in some of the scriptures. So the 5 hindrances are the roots of greed or excessive desire. And technically it's just any kind of desire. All desire has to go for this path. Hatred or anger, and or aversion, so things you don't want, attachment to what you don't want, and delusion or ignorance. Ignorance of the Dhamma and not seeing things clearly or how they are. That's delusion. So most people can't simply just break free from them. The development of the 7 factors of awakening erodes these hindrances and their roots. If you imagine a natural fiber rope left on a beach, the wind and the rain and the sun and the salt water, they wash over it for months. And so they really corrode it. So a rope that was once an inch thick and unbreakable eventually succumbs to that weathering and just so eroded that it breaks as soon as you pick it up, or as soon as you try to tie anything with it. It does not, it just falls apart. It does not fixate or stay strong. So the 7 factors of enlightenment act like that weathering, the sun and the rain and the salt water. So we look at the roots of suffering with clear eyes, clear objective perspective from various angles. And sometimes we use the angle of samadhi to still the mind and build its strength. This is the best, because this is, your consciousness is has escaped the ego. It is free of ego when it's in samadhi. And that is where your pure consciousness is fully activated and perceptive. No filters of emotions or anger or a desire, what you want or hopes, nothing like that. Just reality. Now there are 2 types of exercises. The body is strengthened by moving it around. The mind is strengthened by keeping it still. The mind also benefits from the activity, though, of investigation. And that's why theosophists and teachers sometimes use the word thinking or analyzing, contemplation, but truly it is not that. If you're thinking at an intellectual level, it is not thinking. Mental or intellectual contemplation. The real deep contemplation is stillness, where you're letting your supra mind your superior mind do the thinking for you. You're letting your intuition do it for you. So stillness and activity are necessary and must be balanced. So there's the stillness of serenity meditation, for example, and the activity of investigative meditation. The distinction is between shamatha and vipassana, or samatha vipassana, right? Serenity and clarity. So vipassana means to see clearly, or inward moving mind. It has that notion of going inward, withdrawing, but with insight. It's often mentioned in the context of meditation courses, but using the term that way is it's not exclusive to that. It actually refers to lucid sight or seeing clearly. So while it is the result of certain activities, you need this lucidity to support your investigation. Your mind must be clear and able to sustain attention on a single object. And to develop this strength, you can take a static object like the breath, or a little, like a Buddha statue, or some kind of ornament, and train the mind to remain there. And so if you have a statue to look at, you concentrate on that. Likewise, it's even better to place that image in your mind, because now you have to work even harder to keep it there and vivid at the same time, still with all the detail and the intensity and the colors and the size and all that. So because the mind often behaves like an untrained puppy that refuses to sit, so it must be trained repeatedly. Without sustained attention, profound investigation and conclusions can't arise. Modern society places a very heavy emphasis on education and the ability to manipulate ideas. All this thinking and analyzing. From primary school through university, the focus is on systematically using reason and logic to investigate issues and reach those lucid conclusions. But these academic demands require the ability to sustain attention. And many people struggle with this because our modern culture just cultivates a mind that is really discursive and distracted, of course, and busy. We don't really have, most societies, at least in the West, we don't have any kind of basic training for the mind aside from thinking. We don't teach the mind how to be and how to exist in harmony. Right? We don't learn about mindfulness in school. It's not taught in all the major Western schools or in the education system. But it's so fundamental. You can't rely on a mind that's constantly running and getting distracted, with no ability to prioritize and no ability to stop its thoughts, no ability to relax, and no ability to pay attention. So this inability to focus becomes a huge impediment. We don't have this foundation. It's an impediment to just even our livelihood and well-being. Now we're at the human level. What's next? What lies ahead? Will it last forever? How long does it last? What happens after? So modern skeptical or materialistic views might resist this, wanting to solve the situation of the current life and not taking into consideration rebirth. So pruning out the larger view does a disservice to the project. The 7 factors of awakening are a collection of teachings within the larger path. They function inside the Eightfold Path, which is itself contained within the Four Noble Truths. And it's important to keep the structural relationship in mind. These 7 factors can be useful and healing and clarifying for those coming from secular materialistic backgrounds or other religious views. This teaching is effective for anyone whose philosophy allows for the possibility that personal effort and inquiry and developing can produce positive results. If a person follows a deterministic teaching where personal will is has no effect, is useless, and salvation only comes from external things, external factors, from outside conditions that one cannot control, then these methods are not useful. So any system where personal effort bears fruit, you will find these factors applicable. However, the 7 factors of enlightenment function most effectively within the context of the Four Noble Truths and the specific worldview of the Buddha.